figured since there's a big reboot of the Doctor Who with the regeneration of a, well, almost new Doctor, we have a familiar face as a temporary Doctor. So I figure I'd do a video on the channel's avatar. So if you noticed or have any attention to detail, you notice that the little round logo for the channel identifier is a TARDIS. And it's just not any TARDIS. It's this TARDIS right here. This is a Lego TARDIS. So this started quite a while ago. So in the time frame for your Whovians, your true Whovians out there, this was toward the end of the Matt Smith era, just before he regenerated to Peter Capaldi. So it was one of them years. It was about this time of the year, October, November, December. I was looking for something to watch on TV other than just the regular reruns of the 80s. So I was just flipping through the channels and blah, 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 and then I come to the BBC. So usually the BBC, they always got some kind of marathon running. They got Star Trek marathons. They got whatever else they got. Well, it happens to be that it was just a complete... pretty much end of the year series. They were just going to play Doctor Who all until the end of the year. So that's where I got locked onto, and I started with David Tennant. So David Tennant, Matt Smith, Peter Capaldi, and then Jodie Whittaker. So it was just an over, so I got myself familiar again with Doctor Who because I haven't watched Doctor Who since I was a kid. And back in the day, when I was a kid, it was the Tom Baker era. So the tall guy with the really long hair, curly hair, always wore a trench coat and had the scarf. That was my doctor that I grew up with as a kid. And it was on PBS at the time for my neck of the woods, or my part of the world. So, you had to deal with Sesame Street, Mr. Rogers, Reading Rainbow, blah, blah, blah. And then as the kid period ended, then you got into the more adult period. So whatever else that PBS had, including Doctor Who. So I really never watched Doctor Who as I was a kid. I do remember him. I remember the Doctor. I remember the Daleks. That's about it. And then being on public broadcasting service, it was one of them services where they always had that marathon. If you enjoy this show, you donate to the channel, blah, blah, blah. So it's like, I was a kid, wasn't really set, dedicated to any particular show. So, going back to looking for something to watch, I started watching the reruns of the David Tennant, and unfortunately, I didn't get to see on BBC the Eccleston era. When it was kind of Doctor Who ran for so many years, and BBC would kind of really stretch it out because they really wanted to make good storylines and stuff like that. So I guess it was a long period of time where before Eccleston there was nothing. So BBC never really, even to this day, still doesn't show the reruns of the Eccleston era. So from Eccleston to Tennant, Tennant to Matt Smith, Smith to Capaldi, and then Capaldi to Whittaker, and now we are temporarily back to Tennant. So it was like one of them things, I liked the show. It had a good storyline, interesting content, because it was part of the BBC. BBC always had great content to a point. So then I was looking around the interwebs, because you start Googling stuff like that. You like to have some kind of, something that you can have as one of your favorite shows. So if you're a Whovian, of course you want some way, shape, or form something as a TARDIS. And for me, it was a no-brainer. Well, a Lego TARDIS. Well, guess what? There's no really such thing as a Lego TARDIS. I mean, there's been petitions, there's been wants, there's been requests, there's been this and that, and really the only thing Lego really done was a small scale little control room of the TARDIS and a couple of the characters and maybe a real tiny model of the TARDIS that I don't think they really endorsed. But it's probably one of them deals where copyright and endorsements and royalties and blah blah blah, and it just boils down to this. So I did all that doom scrolling of Google searching. Did anybody make a model of the TARDIS? No, not really. I mean, they were all tiny scale. They're small and this like that. And I was like, well, how about Lego TARDISes? Same thing, you know, blah blah blah. So I just happened to stumble upon a website, and it was just completely off the wall. And for whatever reason, when I was Googling it, you know, sometimes you get like a sub search, and I found a search for studs not on top. What? And you're like, studs not on top? So it intrigued me, so I clicked on it, blah, blah, blah. And it led to the start of this thing. So it led to this guy's site here. I guess it's by original project by it's just John. So JUSTJON. I guess he's the one that designed and created the studs not on top. So what do you mean by studs not on top? Well, in this particular model, it's for the windows. So if you notice the windows, they're that classic T-shaped TARDIS windows. So if you know anything about Legos, you notice that these particular bricks, they're meant not to go, you know, the lengthwise up and down. They're meant to go horizontal, not vertical. So this guy created this, the studs not on top, so that means the studs are either left to right or right to left. So that is what makes up the windows for this particular model. And then had to change a card. So that's the storyline on studs not on top. So it refers to the window pane construction. As for the rest of the construction, it's all standard Lego type construction. So that means it has to be built now. So this guy, in all his information, I don't know if he's still on the web or not, or if you even can find this anymore. Probably can. He's got a whole, just like a Lego set, he's got all the instructions here. So whoever actually built it, of course, when you got something this big, probably took them quite a while to get the proportions just right, and then go ahead and break it down and make an instruction manual and a build manual and a parts manifest. So luckily, when you download this instructions for assembly book, it gives you the complete parts manifest in the back. So everything you need. Of course, I had to put some notes in because I've changed this so many times on how many bricks you need to build this thing. So it's 2, 3. It's a 4-page manifest. So you need a lot of bricks. So this design is based on the work of Just John Online, blah, blah, blah. And then it gives you a couple other little stuff in here. So, now comes the acquiring the bricks. And of course, if you're a Lego avid or stuff like that, you know that you can get the majority of the bricks right directly, and you can actually order a lot of the bricks right through Lego and have them delivered to you. So that's what I did. So it was in the December month area, and it was right in the time, Christmas rush, Christmas shutdowns, stuff like that. So I made an order in December, and I don't think I got my bulk of my bricks until well into January. But at least I had something to drool over and for that mine time. And then on top of that, all the mine storming that I was doing with this thing. So, going to the bricks, I was able to acquire the majority of the bricks for this right through Lego. All the bricks for the original design. This is the original design. And of course, if you look at the original design and you look at mine, you know that I was brainstorming. So, going back to the bricks. Got all the bricks, pretty much about 98% of them. Till I got to the roof pieces. That's when all the brakes and shit hit the fan. Because Lego stopped making roof pieces. I was able to get a few bits through eBay and stuff like that, but not enough to do the whole roof. That was a bitch. It took me weeks to source out enough bricks on eBay and stuff like that to complete the roof. That was a bitch. Then I still couldn't find enough roof pieces to finish the roof. So I'm like searching all over Google, searching all over the web, trying to get roof pieces. So eventually I found Bricklink. Bricklink is one of them places, let me tell you, it can be rewarding and it can be a shit show all at the same time. Because you're at the mercy of individual people who are selling Lego bricks. And sometimes they got you by the balls. Where you got to order, they may have, like one seller might have every single piece that you need. Here's the catch. You got to spend so much money with them. So let's say this individual has all the roof pieces, and you order all the roof pieces, and then you look at your tally, and it's like $10. But they want you to spend $100 in bricks for them to even entertain your order. So that was like, so you just keep moving on from seller to seller to seller to seller to seller. And sometimes you get the sellers, they will sell you the bricks individually, and they won't shaft you and stuff like that. So eventually I was able to acquire enough sellers that weren't going to stick it in your ass to get the roof pieces. And I was able to finish the project. So when I finished the project, it looked exactly like this. And I had that for a little while, sitting up in its spot that it normally sits at. So I'm sitting here, and I'm like, yeah, it's cool as hell, but I gotta make it mine. It's gotta be different. Brainstorm. What can I do to make it different? So, watching all the episodes and stuff like that, there was an episode in the Matt Smith era where the doctor brings one of his companions on a trip to essentially where the TARDIS and the Doctor dies. So they make it there. The TARDIS is going nuts because it doesn't want to go. They get it on the planet and they show the companion uh, where the Doctor died, and it was ironically they buried him in the TARDIS. So there's the TARDIS on this broken down graveyard planet. The TARDIS is all beat up. Half the lights ain't working, and it's growing. It's actually growing. It's huge. So it's about, let's say the Doctor is 6 foot tall. The TARDIS is literally 18 feet tall. And it's all cockeyed and misproportioned and stuff like that. But gave me an idea. So if you notice on this picture, all the doors in the corners of the TARDIS are all flush. So all four sides are flush. So it's basically a square and a rectangle at the same time. So I seen that episode, and that gave me in a brainstorm. I says, I would really like to have this thing with the doors inset. So that gave me an idea. I says, what if I take the corners and make them bigger? So instead of I think it was a 2x2. I think they were 2x2s, a square, 2x2s. So I made them 3x3s. So I made each corner 3x3. So that gave me the inset I wanted. So if I turn this a little bit, actually I'll pick it up and I'll bring it closer. So you can see the doors are inset, which gives this thing a lot of style now. Now that opens up the door, I need more flipping bricks. And I don't want to wait another, it literally took a month or over a month for bricks to come from Lego when they were shipped out, because they're not here in the United States, they're out over across the pond. So I went back to Bricklink, and I was able to find sellers that weren't going to stick it in my ass, and I got enough pieces to make 3x3 corners. Now, since it's bigger now I needed to make the base bigger. So, when you're a Lego maker, you already know how to make the base bigger. So I had to make the base bigger. And for me, to make the base bigger also mean I had to make the base taller, because I knew in the future I wanted to light this up. So I needed to make it taller so I can have the cord sticking out the back. So in the back of this, there's a little notch right here to have the cord sticking out. So that's that. So that took care of the base. Now the problem is, now I go back up to the roof here. And of course, I really didn't want to make the roof more pitched like it is. I kind of wanted it like inset. I wanted to make it look like it was part of this thing. Like it looks like a building with a ring around it or something like that. I don't know what you would call it. Architecturally, it looks architecturally correct. It's comes up and then it kind of goes flat a little bit, and then it comes up and then flat and up, and then you got your slope for the roof. So I needed more bricks. That wasn't a problem. The problem is finishing the bricks off. So I needed plates. I needed the plates. So I needed to go back to Bricklink and look for flat plates so I could finish this part of the roof all the way around the perimeter of the roof line. And I was able to acquire all the plates. Same thing with the plates down here on the foundation of the TARDIS. I needed to get them plates. And of course, when you got to get this particular length of plates, and on top of that. So, that made it is to what it is now, minus the light. So I'm looking at this thing, and of course when it's sitting up on the shelf, this particular part here, where the door, the top of the door meets the frame of the building, when you're looking at it, you're going to see the bottom of the bricks. And for me, it drove me nuts. And of course, we all know what the bottom of bricks look like. They're all them rounded shapes in the bottom. Now you see all my wiring down in there. So I needed more plates so I could, and of course you're not going to just have them in there. I had to glue them. So I had all the plates up here on all four. So 2, 4, 6, 8 doors, or 2 doors and then 6 panels. I had to finish the bricks with hot glue and the plates. So then it came to the top of the TARDIS. And of course the top of the TARDIS has a light on it on top. So on the picture here, you can see the light. And it's okay for the light. I mean, it's proportional for this particular model. And I had it on this one too. Well, I didn't like it. It was like, well, the TARDIS is bigger and it's got that little dinky light on it. So I went on Google and I see if there was different pictures of the TARDISes. And there's all kinds of different pictures and user recreations and stuff like that. And I just happened to find this particular picture that had this kind of a light on it. So I wanted to recreate that. Well, you got to kind of brainstorm on that. So I figured, well, what the hell can I use to make this light look like the one in the picture? So I said, well, okay, well, the clear part, that's easy. That's 4 by round. So I can stack a couple on top of each other and make it look proportional. Then you get into the uprights. So what's the uprights? Well, the uprights are like little rods and stuff like that. So I'm like, okay, well, now I need to finish the top of the light. So I'm like, what can I use? So they call these little round discs like satellites, dishes. And that was a chore right there, trying to figure out what size satellite dishes I need, because I needed 1, 2, 3 different sizes to make it look right, and the little cat piece too. So back to Bricklink, you're getting shafted. So then I had to find sellers that weren't going to ding me too hard and stuff like that. So I was able to get enough satellite dish pieces and the upright pieces and a couple other little bits and pieces to finish the top of the light off. So that's eventually what I got. And then it was okay. Now I think it's done. And I had it just like that for a while. So now I'm like looking at it, and then when you finish the TARDIS off, of course the guy gives you all the decals. Of course, you have to print the decals on decal paper, and then stick them to your TARDIS. So I'm looking at this, and I go, yeah, okay, well, we'll try it as is, and of course, here's all the stuff, and you print this in 100% format, so it gives you all the police public call box decals. And then you get of course, the famous, user public for the telephone. And then it gives you the address for if you wanted to use the optional St. John's ambulance decal. And I printed all the decals out. And I'm like, okay, well, that looks cool. And I had that for a couple of days. Then I'm looking I want to light this up, because the windows are clear, and of course on the original design, all the windows are milky. Well, I wanted it like the Matt Smith era, where the T in the windows, and of course that T continued on into Peter Capaldi's era, and eventually into Jodie's Whittaker. So I'm like, well, since the windows are clear now, I wonder if there's a way I can light this up. So I'm brainstorming, and I'm looking online. I'm looking for different LED packages. So I'm like, well, of course, on the show, you know that the lighted signs, they're lighted. You know, on the TV show, they're lighted. So I'm like, I wonder if there's a way, some way, shape, or form, I can light these up. So I did a lot of searching, and eventually I came to super bright LEDs, and that's where I got all the stuff to light this up at the time. So the signs here are actually chip-on board lights, and they're panel mounts, and they just happen to be the perfect height for a sign, perfect height and width. So I'm like, that's perfect. So of course I had to buy them so I could have them physically in hand, so I can see what they look like on here. Then it was the big chore of trying to make the decals just the right height and just the right length, as big as possible, without going over the boundaries of the LED light. So, you know, a lot of printing and a lot of trial and error and stuff like that. Now it comes to the point, now I got to apply it. So, of course, you print it out and you stick it on, and then you light it up, and it's like, it looks like garbage, because the LED is so flippin' bright, it's actually bleeding through it. You can see all the light, even in the black. The black is all lit up. It's like, that looks like garbage. So I had to literally put several layers on top of each other. So there's got to be at least 4 or 5, maybe even 6 layers of decal paper. And of course, you got to line all that up by eye. Of course, you got to have the sign lit up, and you're staring at it, and you're getting sun blinded because you're trying to line it up perfectly, because if they're off, the signs, they look blurry. And I had to do it a couple of times. And of course, I didn't have the microscope at the time, so I did it all freehand. So probably 6 or 7 different layers on top. On top of that, I had put a couple of layers of just plain Jane decal paper over the top. So eventually I was able to get enough layers on there where the black stays black and you can't see the light coming through. But one thing that was concerning me is that having the lights on at full brightness, I thought they were getting kind of warm. I says, well, eventually the adhesive for the decal paper is eventually going to break down, and then they're going to fall off. Then you're going to have to do it all over again. So I says to myself, well, Super Bright LEDs has got all them little controllers. So I got a controller for all 4 lights. Is one controller for the 4, and I dimmed them down as much as possible, and yet still have them bright enough where they look good. And then that part of the lighted portion of the TARDIS was done. Next stage is, how do I get the windows to light? Okay, well, now Super Bright LEDs, they got all kinds of little stick-on LED strips. So I'm like, okay, well, what do I use? Should I use like front-facing? You know, like these things, front-facing, and then just having the light just scatter all over the place? I'm like, I don't know. Then they got the other option. They got the side fire. So it's just like these, but they shoot out in one direction. So I says, well, let me gamble. I'll get them. And that's what I got. I got the side firing in pure white. Not the fake white, not the yellow white, not the cold white. I'm talking white white. And this is what I have in the perimeter, and they're running all the way around the perimeter inside the TARDIS, all underneath the windows. So since these are side fires, of course you're going to have them facing up to light the windows up. And that's how I accomplish lighting up the windows. Then it comes to the top light. How do I light the top light up? Well, that was probably about the easiest out of the whole project. Is getting to light up these clear plastic bricks. So the clear plastic, the receptacle, the female part that accepts the stud, it's just a little bit smaller than a 5mm lead. So I took the brick out and I kind of reamed it out. It's not pretty, but it's all clouded up because you're drilling and grinding and all that other good stuff. So I was able to grind it out until it accepted a 5mm LED, and it just jammed in there, and that's how I got the top light to light. And then I left it like that for a while. So then I'm looking at it, and I'm like, there was a couple of episodes where the public call box portion of the TARDIS, that sign was lit. And I think it's either in the Matt Smith era and definitely in the Peter Capaldi era where this part is lit. So I'm like, how can I make that light? That was a tough one. There was nothing available that would fit in the panel other than something that was way too big. So I'm like, now what? What do I do now? I just happened to, through my searches, I just happened to find a LED, interior LED retrofit kit. And in that kit was these little LED dome lights. And that's actually what this is. This part here, it's an actual LED dome light. So I custom made the decal. I probably had to make it a little bigger. No, actually I had to make it a little smaller. So I had to shrink it down so it fit inside the lighted portion, because the lighted portion is a lot smaller than the housing of the light, because the light has a little header in it. So I had to shrink it down, and I says to myself, okay, well that works. And of course it's not perfect, because you see the hot spots in the LED. And I got it dimmed almost down to like 1%, and it's still hot spotting this particular sign, and there's nothing I can do about it at this time. Maybe if I were to go out now and maybe look for something, I might be able to find something. But right now, at the time, a couple of years ago, I couldn't find anything. So I'm looking at this thing, and it's an LED dome light, and I'm like, how can I? And now it's easy to put the decal on it, but how do I make it blend in with the door? I says, well, I don't know what to do. So, of course, the dome light thing was all silver, so I'm like, I could paint it. I didn't have any blue paint at the time. I says, well, I got a blue Sharpie. So I got it Sharpied. So then I'm looking at the header of this thing. I'm like, now what? So it looks like garbage. So I'm thinking, what do I do? Well, you know that the doctor's, when he's going in and out of the TARDIS, he's got a little handle on the door to help him shut the door. Or open the door when he puts the key in the lock. So you know what? That public call box part, that's got a little handle on it, or I can make it look like a little handle. So I got them two little telephone pieces. So I put a little telephone piece, and it looks like a little handle, so the public can access the little telephone that's in there. Or on the doctor's side, where he can pull the door closed. So that took care of that. And then for the keyhole, I says, well, you need a keyhole to make it look official. So it's just a regular little stud piece. And I just chopped the big portion of it off. I think it's a Technic piece or something like that. I just chopped it off and then glued it on there. And then, of course, with anybody's TARDIS, the St. John Ambulance logo. And that was an optional piece. And it was only on a few of the TARDISes on the TV show. I says, well, it's rare to begin with, so I'm going to have it on mine. And that's how I ended it. I says, and of course, the St. John's Ambulance logo was never lit. I says, that's one good thing I don't have to worry about is lighting it. Then it came to the point of getting it all wired up. Boy, that was real fun because, of course, when you got this thing built, you don't want to be taking it apart, and you definitely don't want to be roughhousing with this because it's Legos. And, of course, if you had them in the past, that if you do any kind of weird force to them, it's going to fall apart. So, on this particular, you can see the plethora of wires that I got in here. And, yeah, I used all the Scotch locks and all the garbage like that because I was too lazy to solder and stuff like that. And this was all trial and error stuff, just to see if I could make it work. So and it was one of them, it's only temporary unless it works. So that's one of them deals. So I got a big bus wire in there, and it's powering all the signs, and it's powering all the controllers in there, because there is 2 controllers in here to dim the lights for the police signs and to dim the public call box sign. And I did have a controller and I still have it. I don't know where it ended up. Because I did have a controller and I did have the top light fading in and out like the TARDIS was in motion. So it was, and I had it synced perfectly with the TV show. So as soon as the doctor slammed the handle to get going, it makes the sound that woo, woo, woo. So I was doing backtrack and replay. I was trying to sync the light with the traveling sound, and that's eventually what I got. I was able to sync it so I can have the top light flashing like the TARDIS was traveling. But and I didn't know it at the time, the first LED I put in here, it failed. It was flickering, and I figured, well, maybe the LED didn't like the controller fading it in and out, pulse width modulating it. So I took it out temporarily, and it never went back in, so it's been a steady light ever since I repaired and put a new LED in it. So that's the story of my channel's avatar, the Lego TARDIS. And this is, of course, my TARDIS, and it's unique. And I've had a couple of little comments on there how they like it, and I wish there was room in here where I could put it in a little better spot so you could see it on camera a little bit better. But it's not going to happen in this establishment. So before I part ways with this story, I'm going to say this was an expensive project. So I'll let you leave before I do say the final number. I'll give you a minute or two to give it an estimated price of how much I spent to get this, just to get it built, not the lighting and stuff like that. Okay, for me to build this TARDIS, pre-lit or before it was lit, was over $500. Yep, it was over $500, and the bulk of it was directly from Lego to buy all the bricks, and it was a lot of bricks because the parts manifest here. There's a lot of bricks. 4 pages of bricks, and on top of that, and then when I started modding them, so all the stuff that had to be built and custom built, and it added up to a long time. And if it wasn't for Bricklink, I would never be able to build this. So that's it for the channel's avatar. I hope you enjoyed my little overwinded story. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next time and relative dimension in space.